2 studios, all materials at the ready. 2 improvised pieces of music. What results when 2 visual artists find inspiration in these compositions? Creativity, an elusive gift springing mysteriously from the psyche, is impossible to document. Yet traces of the creative mind are evident in witnessing the making of a painting. That's what this project attempts to explore. 2 professional artists of Roosevelt, New Jersey, Ellen Silverman and Deirdre Sheean, participated in this collaboration, each responding to 2 very different genres of music: a contemporary classical work by Alan Malik and a folk composition by Ron Kostar and Robert Thorne. In Part 1, we witnessed the creation of music-inspired paintings by Ellen Silverman. This part depicts the artistic journey of Deirdre Sheean as she responds to the same 2 musical compositions.
This particular project, I imagine will be somewhat of a challenge for me. My experience with music has often been pretty intense, pretty immersive, but I've never really used it as a way to inspire a painting, or used it to spur my creative juices, if you will. Normally, I have an idea in my mind, or if I don't have a subject matter or some idea, I'll give myself exercises. For instance, I'll limit my color palette to 2 or 3 colors, or I'll use one particular motif. I was intrigued by this project, and we'll see how it goes. I use a lot of layers. I'll start with, coloring. For instance, I think I can see behind here that I started off with sort of a real light green. And that sort of, that gives me I feel it gives a kind of cohesiveness to the piece if you do some underpainting. And these are all from stencils that I either make or I buy, or also using hard edges, my ruler, or masking tape. I subtract, I add. They go through a lot of different versions before I finally end up saying enough. I think it's done, although I never know if it's really done, but they feel done. For the most part, it's a very academic kind of traditional background that I have. I took classes where we drew for hours from casts, plaster casts. And they literally would just lock you in this room down in the basement, and you drew from casts. But it was a really wonderful foundation, and I've always drawn on that. It's important to get in there and just do just to always paint, even if it's a half hour every day. I gave myself on this one, I was going to just use greens. This one was, I think, the second one, and I invariably started to introduce some of the earth colors, earth tones that I seem to always revert back to. But I think this project, listening to the music and finding inspiration from the music is going to be challenging. I'm excited by it, but I think it will be another way to approach painting. So I'm looking forward to it. As I was listening to Alan's music, the first thing I saw were colors, and they were light colors, pinks and blues, maybe some violets, and I tried to keep that in my mind as I was listening to it. And it was also, I had a sense that it was sort of this, a meandering, kind of in the beginning especially, kind of like a skipping. Felt like I was kind of scampering through the woods. A winding kind of path. And as it got to the end of the piece, it was pretty dramatic, almost as though, I had come across something in this path, either an animal or another person, something that sort of took me by surprise. So those were the impressions I had, and from there I started painting. And what I usually do is I cover the area I have masked, I have blocked out with the masking tape with an underlying color. And usually, quite frankly, it can be any color that I've got left over on my palette. There's really sort of no rhyme or reason to that. Then I start to come in with another color, and that's when I decided to use the pink that you see here. And I put that on pretty heavily. Sometimes I use a palette knife, but at this point I'm really trying for textures. I'll take whatever I have available. I have sponges, a lot of different sponges. I also will take, and I think in this instance I just took paper towel and started to blot some of the paint off, which kind of creates areas like this. I also come in and start using a pencil, or I have these very fine-tipped acrylic pens that I really have fun with at this stage, because the paint is still wet, and again, it's all about trying to create textures. The next thing I usually do, and of course this varies, but this is how this particular painting has evolved so far, is I start to use some of the stencils I have. I have quite a large collection of stencils that I've either made myself or I've bought. And I just start to put them down. In this particular instance, again, I was trying to create the sense that I was walking along a path in the woods. And so these were some of the motifs I use. So the next stage, they could all disappear. I really don't know how this is going to, what path I'm going to take. I'll probably listen to the music again, see if there's anything else that really strikes me or comes to the fore. But I'll start to paint over this, perhaps lose it, perhaps accentuate. What I like to do is at this stage, well, every stage actually, is to look at areas that I really like and either try to preserve them or duplicate them at another point.
At the next visit to Deirdre's studio, we find that the early version has virtually disappeared.
Well, I listened to the music a second time, and while I was listening to the music, I did a little sketch. I had the same feeling that I had the first time I listened to it, and that was of walking along a path, being someplace that was quiet and peaceful, and the further down the path I went, it became the landscape, the surrounding, the environment became, more energetic, noisy perhaps, crowded, just a very different feeling. Not a negative feeling by any means, but it was just like an urban setting, just much more energetic. I think that's the best term I can use. So after I did the drawing, I sort of asked myself, well, how can I express that? Is that how I want to express it? By using sort of a city building motif. And, I thought that was sort of a good idea. I mean, I liked the road, the path, and I decided to keep that, although now I'm thinking maybe I will get rid of that. Not sure. It's kind of a little too literal for me. But anyway, I love the colors on the right-hand side of the painting. I think the left-hand side, which is supposed to represent the beginning of the music, that sort of peaceful feeling I got from the first part of the music, I think it's a little too busy and a little and too similar to sort of in terms of color as to what's going on the right. So my plan is to see about the road. I might get rid of that, but to simplify this and to start using colors that are lighter, not really pastel, but just lighter in feeling, perhaps more of this blue or more of this pink. I think I want to simplify all of that. So anyway, that's how I see this progressing. Maybe add some more here, just really get a feeling of compactness. I like this area, those patterns, and I want to try to introduce some other patterns. I was playing with this. I'm not sure I like that. So anyway, those are a lot of the things that are going through my mind as I was doing this, and now as I look at it and wonder, where I'm going to go, how I'm going to proceed. So that's what's in my mind. That's what I think. I'm going to start working on, and just the materials I use, I guess, are pretty much the same that I've been using for years. Acrylics, pencil, sometimes Sharpies, just crayon from time to time, not on this particular painting, but I have used it in the past. And then stencils. And I think what I really like about stencils, and I've liked this for the longest time. I mean, I've been using masking tape to kind of set the boundaries of my paintings for years, and I love that. It's always so exciting for me to start peeling this back and seeing these clean edges. So that is basically, I love that. So I think that's what kind of, that's why I find stencils so appealing. I like those sharp edges against, texture and pasta. That's where I think all the action is between, the play between the sharp edges and, the other paint, the textures. And so that's sort of my thing lately, is to use stencils. And I can make them. These are all made from a machine I've got. I also buy stencils from a couple different companies that have some very unusual kind of fun stencils, not your usual run-of-the-mill kind of thing. So, that's I think, pretty much my my method, and that is to, create textures, take it off. Sometimes I'll remove a lot of the paint just with a paper towel. And that can reveal, these colors that I put down, in the very beginning. And, so it's subtracting, adding, simplifying, that kind of thing.
Asked what changes she foresaw, Deirdre said,
What I hope to do here is simplify this, make it more peaceful. And achieve that with color primarily, because I think I'm going to take that, I think, out the grass. I mean, I'll have to see. But I kind of, this is going to change though too, the path. I'm not sure. Maybe just the color.
Since she used stencils a lot, she was asked to demonstrate their use.
So these brushes are used for stencil. They're, very inexpensive. But they do a nice job. And you can use the positive or the negative. Maybe this is a better example. Here's this one. You can see. And you just, go up and down like this. That's a little too wet, but even that kind of thing I don't mind. I mean, I like accidents too, so I can play off of those. And then you can use the the negative, but that's basically the technique. I mean, the paint is too wet. You can use a much drier paint and get a sharper edge.
Some days later, Deirdre comments,
I worked on this section, the left-hand section, for the most part, trying to simplify and sort of abstract. I wanted these to be more related. So I started to introduce black, a lot of like black lines. I wanted to keep the idea of a path, but I didn't want it so literal. I wanted it suggested, more abstract. So I came in here with this. I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get rid of this. I don't like that. So that's pretty much what I've been working on. So I still am listening to the music, and I'm trying to keep, to my original feeling. I mean, it hasn't changed much. I've listened to the music at least 4, maybe 5 times, and I still get that sense of kind of wandering down a path. So I'm just trying to make them more related, which is a little difficult. So I used masking tape. I also use a hard edge, anything that I can find. I have a lot of cardboard paper that I'll use, just like this, something like that, and then I'll dab my brush, with black to get those lines. So masking tape, colored pencils, acrylic paint. I also use an X-Acto knife sometimes to go in there and scratch the surface, because I do like the play between texture and line and flat kind of opaque areas of paint. I am hoping that with the colors I've introduced, the green fields and the sky, that I get a sense that I'm developing a sense of distance, because I do feel that the music does kind of convey that, walking and, going off into the sunset, if you will. But so the lighter colors, I'm hoping, suggest that feeling. Well, this is, a large kind of panoramic view of, the city butting up against hills and fields. I'm not that satisfied with the painting yet. I really have to think about it, maybe listen to the music again, but there is something that's just not holding it together for me. So I would say I've got another couple of hours to go back in and pull it together more for myself. So usually what I do is I just kind of put it away for a couple of days and come back and keep looking at it. But I know I'm not happy with this. I want something in the foreground that would, also kind of convey that sense of distance. So this is going to change. I know that. I know I want to come in here and I don't know, make it pop a little bit more. Maybe I really like that color. Maybe, introduce that more throughout the buildings.
Deirdre mentioned much earlier her preference for earth tones, but now contemplates returning to some of the colors used in the first version of the painting.
I felt that the music had, a very distinct beginning and an end, and I guess that's what I'm trying to do with this painting. So trying to bring in those colors again might be bring back in the pinks that I had and some of the violets. Maybe that's the way to go.
She describes subtracting paint.
Like a lot of this is several layers, and I think I came in here and with the paper towel and kind of blotted that up.
And fortuitous mistakes.
When I was creating this stencil, I kind of also created that. So, but that's, that's really where the excitement is, where the fun is, I think. Is to be able to, not be, that a lot of times the mistakes can work for you.
At the next visit, Deirdre talks about the painting's status.
So this painting, I think, is pretty much finished. This area up here, I'm still not really happy with. But the rest of it I like, and I don't think I'm not going to go back in. The area on the left I changed a lot. I really simplified the background. I took out what looked like, I guess, tracks, railroad tracks, and tried to give it a more abstract feeling, more of a suggestion of a road. And I introduced colors that were here in the buildings over into the road, or the path. So I was happy with that. I really like the textures the colors that are popping up from underneath. That was really fun. And so I think, I'm pleased with this painting. As I said, I want to go back in here. I might lighten the sky a little bit. It's kind of it's a blue that I don't think harmonizes very well with the rest of the painting. I think I'd make it more of a cream color, but it's really, I think, finished. And it was it's an interesting process, listening to the music, coming up with an idea from the music. Was interesting. I mean, I'm surprised how strong a visual I got from listening to Alan's piece, and it was more difficult to convey that image than I thought it would be. But I would say, I'm more interested, I guess, in creating an interesting painting. And so if I haven't been exactly true to that visual image I got at first from listening to the music, that was sacrificed for, what I think makes an interesting painting.
Asked how the changes were made, she replies,
the one technique I use that I think was fairly new for me is, after I put on a lot of layers, and I kind of throw a lot down on the canvas, and then I come back in, sometimes with a palette knife that kind of makes for a slick surface. I think I did that a few times. And then I come in with a napkin, a plain old paper napkin, and I blot up a lot of the paint to get some of that texture that's in the paint, the colors that has been put down previously. I also sometimes will take the napkin and I'll just dip it in a color and dab lightly around the whole thing. Really trying to pull the painting together with color. And so that's kind of a new little technique I stumbled upon. And but I think for the most part it was a painting that was done like any other painting I've done, except for the very beginning and getting that image from the music.
Notice that Deirdre said it was, quote, pretty much finished, so we'll see what it looks like next time. About 2 weeks later, it's not surprising that she says,
"This painting is still not to my liking completely. I mean, I really like all of this down here. I love the texture that I created, this kind of abstract treatment. I mean, the buildings and the fields and the road are really, I think, complement one another, are really handled pretty much the same way. I'm having a lot of trouble with the sky and these buildings up here. They're just not, in my mind, related very well to how things were handled in the lower 2/3 of the painting. So I will go back, I'm sure, and play with the sky and this area up here. But that's, I'll sit on this for a little while and then probably go back in and try and get these to be more harmonious. I mean, I do like I like the sky and the direction it's going towards, but I think I'm just going to simplify it a little and try to come in and make texture similar to what I've got down here.
having completed the first painting, Deirdre now turns to very different music for inspiration.
So this is the first I listened to the music Ron and Bob created, and this is the first attempt at trying to convey in a visual way what came to mind when I listened to the music. And I found the music to be kind of very light and playful. And I thought it was a pretty bright sunny day out, and I'd taken a walk on the woodland trail, and the woods can be, change from day to day depending upon, the time of year and the light and time of day. And most of the time, even on the darkest days, I find it can be just so playful, and the colors can be so vivid even on a really cloudy, overcast day. So I came back, I listened to the music a second time, and I thought, yeah, that's how I'm going to try and capture that music, and that will be by trying to create a view of the woods and all of the colors and the different shapes you see and the depth. So I started with covering the canvas with a very light, almost watercolor-like wash, and you can see it kind of here. It was a pretty neutral color. And then I came and started putting down strips of masking tape all across the board, and painting between those strips strips. I also kind of would put a strip down and take my X-Acto knife and just kind of create a tree trunk, if you will. And that was sort of fun. And I think, and then painting on that. But I had a lot of strips like this across the whole surface, the whole board. And trying to keep it light, trying to keep away from the earth tones, which I'm still keep going back to. But I think the music is so playful, and I think it really deserves some light colors. So I know that's going to be a struggle for me, because I have a certain palette I always end up using. So this is kind of a fun piece, I think, and I've never really attempted anything like this. It'd be interesting to see where it goes. I think what I want to do, one thing I'm going to try, is to take a piece of drawing paper, from a sketchbook, and draw trees in a very abstract, simple way, and cut them out and kind of use that as a stencil, see how that works. But I just might continue with the masking tape, because that's I like the way, the effect I got from some of those strips and the paint that I applied on. This, I came back in with the tracks. I'm not quite sure. I like it, but I think it's maybe a little too dark. Anyway, so this is just the beginning, the first crack, the first foray into kind of creating a woodland trail scene.
Some days later, the painting has evolved.
One of the things I did away with was using the masking tape. Some of the changes I made was to create these tree stencils, which were really fun. And I used both the positive and the negative parts of the stencil. And I have a feeling I'm probably going to end up making a couple more with more branches, perhaps. I love, like a winter sky with the bare branches and the very lacy patterns they make. So that's something I'm going to try for. However, I'm sure I am going to go back to use masking tape. I like what is sort of happening, and it seems like almost panels have been created, when I was using the masking tape. This is a panel. This could be a panel. And I kind of like that. So I can see, as I go back into this, accentuating that idea of panels. So the masking tape will probably come back. I added a lot more color, but it's at this point it's the values I think are very much the same.
In this context, value refers to brightness, as Deirdre will soon mention.
One thing I like to do as a kind of check on myself is to look at darks and lights, small shapes against large shapes, those kinds of things, opposites, texture, heavy paint against kind of a slick, flat surface. I love those kinds of contrasts. So that is what I'm going to be striving for as I continue with this painting. I really want to, I just remember the music as being kind of bubbly, light, and it's sometimes I think the feeling you get on a sunny day going through the woods. There's a lot of color that is just bouncing all over the place. So I'm gonna try for that. This fence idea, or tracks. I guess they're railroad tracks. It's a railroad track stencil. I just really like that repetition that, and across the bottom of the painting. But I think in the beginning it was too dark and too prominent, and it wasn't really what I was after. So I still am using it, and because I like that pattern. I like the way it pulls your eye across the canvas. I'm just going to make, I was just trying to make less of it, more just another thing the eye picks up on, but don't want somebody to look at it and say, oh, it's a fence. It's more of a, gazing into a forest. And the thing at this point, I like it, but it's not there. And so what I find somewhat hard a lot of times is being afraid to ruin a painting. I think that's something you have to let go of. So as much, I like this. There are areas I really like, but to get the effect I want, I just might ruin it. But I you have to kind of get in there and play with things and see how it goes. You can always bring it back. Maybe not always, but a lot of times you can. So that's what I think is going to be the challenge going forward, is creating more contrast, making it kind of pop, just not be afraid of losing what I have. If I do, maybe something more interesting or better will crop up. But I know a lot of times, sometimes I get so precious things about a painting, and it's kind of loses its excitement and its spontaneity. So that's where I see myself going with this. And, we'll see. The music was definitely created some visual images, and I'm going to try and be true to that.
Some days later, dramatic changes are apparent in the completed painting.
I trying to remember exactly what I did here. I did a lot, And I think the first thing I started to do was to sort of unify the colors. And so I have sort of 3 different panels, sort of this very dark, thin panel over here, and a similar but wider panel here. And then the center is sort of bright, and you know, I think it's related to the other 2. Just I wanted to try and get the feeling of you know, going towards something, going towards the light. A lot of times when you know, you walk in the woods, if you look up, and usually I'm looking down, you know, watching where I'm going, but when you stop and you look up, it does seem like, you know, straight ahead is sort of your focal point, and it's usually lighter, more vivid colors than your peripheral vision. You know, you get that kind of tunnel effect. So that, I guess that's sort of what I was trying to accomplish here. I also wanted to concentrate on the floor of the forest, and you know, I came in here with this stencil. This was very bright down here, the colors, a lot of oranges and pinks, and I came in with this stencil, and I just took the darkest color I could mix, and you know, just started you know, dabbing it and going, you know, creating this effect, which I really liked. And it wasn't sort of what I was striving for, it just sort of happened. And I left it. I sort of like that little psychedelic look. So that was kind of a fun accident, a surprise, if you will. The other thing, while I was doing this painting, and it just was a kind of a whole different approach for me. You know, I usually just take the stencils I've created. I think I put them all down like this, and then I started applying color over them. I think I had, you know, I blocked things out, you know, like that, to kind of separate these 3 panels that I somehow created. So that's what I initially did, is I just came in there really bold. I had masking tape down here and here, and really sort of tried to pull these 3 different panels together with color. So I started to apply a lot of greens and yellows in the center panel, and these 2 panels darker, more earthy tones. And then what I did, and it was really sort of fun, I started picking out, looking for patterns and shapes, and I went back in and started to pick those out. So that was kind of a new approach for me, and I like, you know, that was something I think I'd probably end up doing again, because what I like to do, and I think I've shown this in the beginning of a painting, is just throw everything in there you know, the stencils, color, but I usually keep it pretty, pretty simple, pretty tight. This one, I just started to see shapes and patterns, and I started to pull those out with color. So that was a brand new kind of process for me. This is a pretty abstract painting for me. Mine are usually, there's usually something that's pretty realistic to grab hold of, and there's really not too much in this painting except for perhaps the grass, but even that is very suggested. So this is totally a bit of a surprise, this painting, the way it came out. I think it, I listened to the music again, sort of halfway through my working on this, and I think it reflects what I heard in the music, which was sort of a bouncy, kind of colorful, nice piece of music. I think the kind of waviness that I've created here, that was made with masking tape, which I would lie down on the board like this and then take my X-Acto knife, and I sort of made, a cut, a swirling kind of cut. And that's how I created this area. So I've got sort of a lot going on here. But I tried to unify it through color and, these three panels. It almost looks like a stage in a way, with curtains on either side. But I hope you get the feeling of kind of entering into, this environment.
To complete this odyssey into the creative process, proceed to Part 3 and listen to the participants provide insights into their experiences.